Okay, so chapter 6 is over HyperV, and I said this week we would look at some PowerShell commands to control HyperV itself. Let's look at that. We don't need to be inside the virtual machines. We need to be on our host machine because it's the one actually running the HyperV service. Let's just launch I guess let's go ahead and launch Visual Studio Code. It should be installed on all the machines. You can search for it with the magnifying glass. It's probably not pinned to your start bar, but you can search for it and pin it or just launch it. So again, this is not inside the virtual machine. Once it launches, I want to go ahead and make sure everything is up to date in PowerShell. As I click on my help screen, it's telling me it's downloading an update. I notice on the cog wheel, I have an update. So if I click on it, it gives me the option to install an update. So I'll go ahead and run the updater. It gives me a note to click update now. And we'll go ahead and restart. Give you a little bit of time. Is everybody able to update your PowerShell integrated console? Should show version 2021.10. I remember looking at that correctly. I had 2021.8 before. As far as today, I'm mostly just interested in the terminal down here. So I'm kind of bringing it up on the screen. And note in your corner, is everybody running PowerShell 5.1? The lower right corner. Okay, let's see what we have. If there's any more updates, there's modules and stuff installed with PowerShell. PowerShell does let you go out on the internet and update any modules that's installed in the system. I just update module. If you just leave it at update module, it's supposed to update anything that's already installed. I'm going to run it. I've not run this before on these new machines we've got in. So I just wanted to see if there's anything to update. Well, I have no output on the screen, so I'm not real sure if it did something. It took a little while. scan through everything. Either everything's updated or it updated with no output. Git module. Will show me all the module versions. One of the key module versions needing updated is the package management. Probably should have done that beforehand. Has everybody got 1.4.7?
Yes.
So we have some comparison. I'm gonna, well, thought I was gonna remotely access. There we go. Access this machine. And apparently it has the wrong password set on it. So I'll fix that too. Still on full screen. It's not wanting to unzoom. There we go. So if I get module, notice on this one, I don't have an updated version of package management. So apparently our update module did work. I should have looked at that prior. Oh, no, this one's come up. You want to update everything? Yes. A relaunch. Oh, that's tiny. Interesting. but everyone, if you have the 1.4, right, .7. I think Visual Studio Code forces that update. I'll go ahead and sign out. I was just trying to compare on the two systems. Okay, so today, down here in the terminal, let's just look at some of the commands for HyperV. So one of the be like get VM. Go ahead and just type that in and run it. Don't have rights. Everybody get the same thing? As far as the commands we want to run today, I don't think we want elevated privileges. This close Visual Studio Code. We have to launch it as admin to do anything. Let's just play with the Windows PowerShell Admin for today. We may go back and relaunch Visual Studio Code though. But now I could get VM. You should not have a permission problem. Pedro, that's right click to start menu. Click PowerShell Admin.
We want to make sure we're not on HyperV Module, right? This is. I want to make sure I'm on the same page.
Yes, you're on the.
We're also on.
So you have fewer virtual machines than I've got running on mine. That just means less people sit at your desk. So we're looking at what do you see? All the virtual machines that you see in the HyperV Manager, right? So if I launch HyperV Manager, I'll see all the same virtual machines. And pretty much the same information if they're running or not running. Right? Cool. So I can view them from a command prompt. Let's go ahead and shut one of them down. Let's go ahead and stop VM. And if you have spaces in your name, you'll have to surround it in quotation marks. But when I named my LAN 2 courses, I use underscore. When I did my LAN 1 course, notice I have spaces. So when you have spaces, most of your encoding class, you know that commands have trouble with names that have spaces in it, right? So you have to surround in quotation marks, double quotation marks, when you have anything that's got a space, typically anyway. So I'm going to see if I can shut down my virtual machine. Some of you may succeed and shut down your system. Some of you may get an error. So what happens? Does your machine shut down or do you get an error? What's my error telling me? What do you think the machine is locked and can't be shut down means? What do you think that means?
I'm just on top of I'm assuming like one of them virtual machine, not a virtual machine, one of the server locked.
Does it require a password to shut down?
Elijah was getting pretty close. So a user's logged into the system and it's locked. Either they've locked the screen manually or there's been a policy with the screensaver kicked on and the screen is locked. So that's what that's talking about. We tried stop VM. Let's check out if we can get help on a commandlet. Get help, stop VM. And it's telling me I need to update and download the most current help files from the internet. Do I want to do that? If I just hit enter, it automatically is yes. So yes, I do want to do that. That happens if you've not viewed help or if help is outdated. And apparently I've not viewed help before. So objective here is how to get help from the command prompt without having to use Google. Like, wait, Mr. Goodman, we're supposed to always use Google. Yes, yes, always use Google, but you can get help without dropping to a web browser, especially if it's just a specific command that you're running. So the stop VM shuts down, turns off, or saves a virtual machine state. Except we had a problem. The machine was locked. So I have several switches. There's name, sim session, computer name, confirm, force, save, turn off, what if, and just some common parameters. Which of those extra flags do you think we could turn on? Force? Let's try it. So I'm going to hit my up arrow key a couple of times until I can see the command that I had stop VM. And I'll just do a dash force and see if that has any changes to the way it operated. So we got the shutting down before, but we got an error after a few seconds. Cool. No error. I'm looking at the HyperV. And I was wanting to look at from the command line without Googling the HyperV module. What are all the commands? I see my exported commands over here, add VM assignable device, add blah, blah. There's also the get VM and all that's in there, but it ends up with an ellipse out there at the end. Let's see if we can select the pipe exported commands. And we're still having some issues. So I try to format list, and I got a little bit more, but it's still blocking. I'm going to try to format, so dash wrap auto size. Let me take out the select. Expand. Nope. I didn't like that at all. Okay, well, that's hidden to us. Okay, clear the screen. Let's try one more. So it's get command dash module HyperV. There we go. There's all the commandlets on the screen. So just showing you some alternatives. New to HyperV, Google's probably going to be better bet, because then you could click each one of these modules and read what it's supposed to do and browse and play. You can create new virtual machines, remove machines, rename them, set configurations on them. You can start a virtual machine, and we played with stopping a virtual machine. Listing all virtual machines. Now let's move on to something crazy. When we launched Visual Studio Code, let's go back to Visual Studio Code. Let's create a new file. There we go, new file. We'll go and save the file in your documents folder as a PowerShell. And we'll name it my VMs. I used an underscore there, make it a little bit easier. Let's go ahead and save. So if we get VM and we try to run it, what problems are we going to run into? We don't have administrative rights. So we ran into that at the beginning. We could launch Visual Studio Code as with administrative rights, or we could write this as an actual just a PowerShell script and have it elevate itself when it's ran. So let's actually make a script that runs from a command prompt. Well, let's bring up our trusty Google. And let's search for elevate PowerShell user account control. So run with elevated permissions, UAC. Let's check on this first SS64 link. I'm going to open that in a tab and see. I don't think I want that one. There's a blog, how to self-elevate a PowerShell script. That's what I want to do, self-elevate the PowerShell script. Let's open this up. How to self-elevate. And they gave a chunk of code. They take no responsibility for them destroying your computer. Of course, he says. So when this code is run, it's supposed to pop up a UAC and elevate, relaunch the script with administrative privileges. Okay, let's copy this and see if it works as intended. Go and paste it in there. I'm going to go ahead and resave. Down here in my terminal, I may have to launch it from an actual PowerShell window, but let's try it into the terminal. Let's change into our documents folder. That file that we created, the my VMs file, just type my underscore, hit tab, it should auto-complete it. If you try to run it from right here, it should run the script. Let's see what we get. I have a user account control dialog box that's popped up on the screen. This is screen recording, it's probably black. But if I click yes, it launches and runs correctly, but it also closes the window and I can't see the output. Let me add something to fix it. I'm going to add a pause. I'm going to rerun the script. Uh-oh. I didn't save it. I have to save it before I rerun the script. So it's elevating. Then I get to press enter to continue while I'm not getting my VM output. Let's variable the thing. We're getting better. I've got output now. And I've got to press enter to continue. Making some tweaks until we get an output that looks prettier. We're not doing a for loop. We need a for loop to launch it in each line because there's more than one. But what I wanted to show you is if you got scripts that run commands that need administrative rights, you can Google search code that'll auto elevate the script when you're running it. And if the user has the ability to elevate, run a script as admin, it'll pop the UAC up and go, hey, this is going to run as admin rights. It's going to do some changes or get some information on the screen that only administrators should be able to look at. You can click yes, and it will actually run. And this little snippet of code is much shorter than I've seen and implemented in years past. So the person that wrote that gave us a pretty nice one. I looked at had about like 50, 60 lines of code. The last time I used somebody's code that would read and elevate with administrative rights.
When you run it, is the PowerShell supposed to stay open?
No. No, it auto close. That's why I got to put the pause at the bottom. And we could read the output. So cool. Let's do something with this. We've got a script that elevates itself. And we got a script that can grab virtual machine information. Well, let's see what we can do with this. Let's go ahead and create a loop in here, a for each loop. So I'm going to write the name and status of each machine side by side. And I get some weird output. And that's because I'm not using item. I try to continue using the plural form of the array instead of inside the for each. And y'all didn't even point it out, go, Mr. Goodman, you can't do that with the for each loop. Come on, I was evaluating the algebra instructor and his students were yelling out, his mistakes while he was writing on the board. Y'all are supposed to do that. Hey, 2 + 3 is 5, not 4 up there. So I've got my status. That's not really what I was wanting. It's wanting a state. If it was running or stopped or paused. Oh. Let's see, if it's the state. Is that what I want? Yep. That's what I wanted. Cool. Now let's do something really crazy. Read host. Prompt. Search for VMs. Let's try this. We're going to read host, put up a prompt, search for VMs. That's actually going to allow prompt on the screen and have a user type something in and store it into a variable called VM search. And changed up my line 11, the get VM. The thing I looked at this, there needs to be a dash name. Right there. Should just be dash name. So I get the virtual machine name, and I put an asterisk at the beginning and end of it in case somebody searches for a partial word. Let's see how many errors we can get with typing just that extra bit into the screen. I got a prompt. Search for VMs. Ours started with AA. So I'll just type AA. I'm going to hit enter. I got a listing of all the virtual machines that started with AA. That's pretty neat.
Do you have a master key?
Yes.
I need it. So not only do I not have my office key, the office key that I use.
Let's check out if anybody needs some troubleshooting. So Elijah, will check out your code. So what is happening with yours? Operation was canceled by the user, blah, 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 argument list. $, and it's on front of line 9, VM search. It doesn't know what to do with that. And then which also messes up line 10 because it can't find a VM search. So we have read host prompt, search VMs, that's looking good. Okay, resave it and run it again. Did your pause not work?
No.
Okay, and your right host is okay. Item, get VM name. Search was pause. Pause is outside. Quotes, asterisk. What is going on with your why is yours not pausing? That's it's typed in correct. And it just blips and disappears.
Is it saved in there?
I think that's it. You got it saved in 2 different places. Yep, you had it saved in 2 different places. It's a good catch.
I did that earlier. That's why I asked. Because as soon as we did that, I was like, this is not right.
Yep.
Because it would have come up.
Oh,
Because
Yep.
it automatically saves in like recent something. I don't know.
yeah, drive and drop it, so that's one.
Oh, when you drag and drop it, it doesn't count it as like the active one. It still goes to the exact same place you saved it originally. I tried to do that too.
Yeah, that was cumbersome. So you got it saved under your profile directory and under documents. So you have to be careful. And your prompt is under your documents. So that's where it was. That's pretty cool. Hey, there's all kind of little troubleshooting things. So that's pretty great. Okay, so we've learned some cool new things today. One of the key things is there's some code that you can add into a PowerShell script to elevate it, which is great. You could also launch the PowerShell script with administrative privileges. If it's something that you have to run, you can set up a task in Windows to run PowerShell and run it with system privileges or administrator privileges or as a specific user. So that's possible. If there's scripts that you're running, so you're carrying around with you on a thumb drive, to do stuff, then you can do something like this. Just don't reinvent the wheel. Somebody else has already created code. Just copy, paste it, snip it in there, run it. And you're like, hey, sweet, it does what I need it to do. Everything below this point, everything below line 9 will relaunch as admin. And what have we learned here on line 9? We've learned to ask user for input and store in a variable. So that's new. How to ask user for input. Using variables we've done before. So we just reused the VM search down in the get VM name. And the trick, I did surround it with asterisks. That's the answer to life, the universe, and everything. It's 42. So it means all characters, including no characters at all. So being able to put AA in there, search for any 2 letters stuck together in the VM name. You could also run this again and search for the word LAN. Get more output on my system. You may have different results based on the number of classes that sit and use your computer. So I show up not just the AA ones, but I show up all the others. A LAN 2 class. Kind of cool. I do have an annoyance though. My annoyance is when I hit enter, it goes away and I can't search again. So that's annoying. I like to be able to continue or quit.
So keep it open and continue using PowerShell.
So there's several ways to do this. If I just need to do search or end, we could run a do while loop. Have we studied do whiles yet? I think we did. Did we go over while and do while? Yes. So do, I always want this code to run. While something. So do this while something. I could ask another question. $sign answer, and I could read host again. Prompt. And I could ask something like, press Q for quit. Enter to continue. enter nothing to continue. There we go. That's better. So while $answer is not like Q, it's just going to continue looping and not hit the pause. Let's see if that works. What are your bets on it working? So I've run it. It's still working as it has before. It allows me to enter a search term. So I'll look for security. And I find that I have 4 security virtual machines. You may or may not have security virtual machines on yours. I just randomly made a choice. But now instead of a pause and press any key to continue, and it just closing out, I now have press Q for quit, enter for nothing to continue. So if I just enter, it says search for VMs again. Now I could search for AA. I could search for LAN 1. Oh, had a trouble with the space in the search. Oh, never mind. It was asking me again, Q to quit, enter to do nothing. I was trying to search again, but hey, I can search again. LAN 1, there we go. That does work. Now if I put a little Q in there and hit enter, it does work. Cool. I was worried that it's going to be a capital Q, but it auto uppercased it for me.
I try to save it as PowerShell.
Let's look at some troubleshooting here. So go save as, let the file save as, and let's, you're in documents, so save it as my VMs, my, just down there in the file name, just type my VMS, hit save. Okay, so now down there at the bottom in your terminal, you can't see what you've got going on. You'll need to change directory, do CD space documents. Oh, down below. You want to do Control Z. Do Control Z, somehow deleted everything. Let me do it here. So Control Z, Z, there we go. So documents. That's not it. There you go. So you saved it and you kept the default file name with the hashtag in front of it. And it was just reading that as a comment when you're trying to run it. So just like didn't know what to do. It's probably wanted to delete that file, the hashtag in the name. So again, this part of the code is just stuff we copied and threw in there because somebody said it will work. And it did. This part of the code down here, we've done some new cool stuff. We created a loop, a do while loop. So we want to continue doing something until a user presses Q when asked. And then it just keeps looping and you keep searching. So we've developed an interactive PowerShell script with elevated privileges. So cool. Maybe not totally useful yet, but we've expanded it. So for us today, let's go ahead and close out the Visual Studio Code. And I want to drop back just to PowerShell Admin. I want to get VMs again. And I want to power back on my client that I turned off. So from the command line, start VM dash name, and I'll just specify with quotation marks. There we go. So it's running now. A lot of the virtual machines companies are doing, they're using in the Azure cloud. So you can get PowerShell modules for the Azure cloud, and the Azure portal gives you a PowerShell prompt that you can write your scripts and save them in your cloud shell area so you can run them, so you can control and look at all the virtual machines and stuff running in Azure cloud, provision stuff out. Some tasks for looping through and doing stuff like this. UALR's running a bunch of data science stuff where they were collecting data from sensors at a greenhouse. And once they collected a week or a month's worth of data out of all these sensors, they would need to process all of that data through algorithms and stuff. And it required them to run up a cluster of servers, virtual machines to handle the workload. So they wrote a PowerShell script to start up, I believe it was 100 virtual machines into the Azure cloud and feed them this large data set and have them run whatever analytics that the scientists come up with to process that information. And then it would dump that information back to the process information back. And once it was done, it would trigger the PowerShell script to shut all the virtual machines down. Because you got to pay for the amount of time virtual machines are running in the cloud. So they automated all of that with PowerShell to start them all up, throw the workload at them. Once it's finished, then the power them off. So that's kind of just why I was showing you some of these little tricks that you can control virtual machines with PowerShell scripting. And it's all going to depend on, well, what are you needing to do? What are you needing to automate? It'd be kind of slow to provision 100 of them by hand, going through a wizard each time.
So we got kept on going and making more options for like.
Yes. And as far as provisioning, there's commandlets to create a virtual machine with a specific CPU, RAM, and name and stuff like that. So basically what they would do is they create, you know, like server 1 and server 2, 3, 4, and it would just loop through and just keep incrementing a number at the end of the virtual machine, and it would provision 100 machines, incrementing names, and then tell them to turn on. Because it also have to provision the network and everything else into that, but it's a lot easier than trying to, like I said, do them by hand and then power them all up. So lots of things you can do with scripting, and you just got to get the idea, the possibility that you can do it. And then when you run into the problem, that's where the critical thinking comes into play. Is what are the knowledge I know of scripting and coding? How can I solve the problem that's in front of me?